friends, my name is Leslie. I'm a Dominican living in Poland, and today we are going to be talking again about a controversial topic. After the conversations that we jump started last week about if Poland is racist, I just thought about how we interact with race in my country, and I wanted to make this video on if the Dominican Republic is racist. Before we start, I just want to acknowledge that I am definitely not the most educated person on this topic and that my perspective is coming from a privileged position because even though I don't have European features, I am considered white in my country. So the way that I have experienced my country is definitely not the same way that other people have experienced it. I think that we should start with a plain definition of racism just so we are all on the same page. So, racism, according to Google, is the prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Now that we are all on the same page, let's go. I think that when people think about racism, normally we are thinking about white people against black people and the systems that were put in place in a lot of the colonized territories. What people often forget about is that way after the colony ended, a lot of those ideologies and systems are still in place in the colonized territories. In Dominican Republic, the first civilization of the so-called New World, you can definitely see some deep scars in the way that our society is formed. And the saddest part is that most people don't even recognize that they are there. I want to share with you some interesting information that I found on the internet when I was doing some research for this video. And I think this definitely shows exactly what I mean. So, a poll in 2024 showed that only 8% of Dominicans self-identify as black. 18% identify as white. This same study showed that 45% of Dominicans think of themselves as Indian, 9% as mulatto, and 16% as moreno. These last three examples are all a variation of dark, which in my opinion really shows the need that Dominicans feel to separate themselves from the word black. To show a more accurate representation, I actually did some research and found some investigation that Nat Geo did in my country, and what they found is that Dominicans share 49% of African DNA, 39% of European DNA, and 4% of native pre-Columbine DNA. Although most of us are clearly mixed and we show traits from both sides, most Dominicans will only highlight the traits that are more European looking and will try to completely hide all of their traits in their face that indicates that they come from an African descent. In my culture, we have phrases like el negro detrás de la oreja or the black behind the ears. And this is something that clearly shows how most of Dominicans feel about their black ancestry, as something that you want to hide as much as possible, but also as something that as much as you run from it, you can never leave behind. But these facts are actually only the tip of the iceberg. And what's more interesting to me is trying to understand why Dominicans feel that way, when in other populations, what we have seen is that people have embraced their blackness, and especially when we see, for example, African American people, how proud and connected they feel to their black roots. It's a day and night difference from what I see in my own country. Well, I think this has to do with two main factors. The first one has to do with the way in which the English people treated their colonies and the way that the Spanish people handled theirs. So, what we see in colonies that were handled by the English people, it's segregation. So, white people and black people cannot be together, cannot mix. What this caused is that these black people feel a strong connection to their African roots, because there is a feeling of them and us, them versus us, which brings people together. What happened in the Spanish colonies most of the times, this is something that you can also see in Colombia, you can also see in a lot of different places, is that there was more of a mix. And this, of course, it's not something that the Spanish people were super high and happy about, because still there was a difference between the people who are the real Spaniards, the people who come from Europe, and these people were holding all the highest positions of power. But then a new class was created, and this was the class of the mixed people. Not dark enough to be put to work as slaves, but never white enough to be considered one of them. The point is that what happened is that a lot of charts were starting to circulate in which the idea of eventually becoming white through generations was planted within the people. So, if you were a black person, there seemed to be a clear path to eventually, through your line, become white by getting together with white people. What this does to the brain of people, I cannot really explain to you. But the thing is that you will see a lot of people so calmly commenting about your appearance and connecting your appearance to your ability to be a good person or an efficient person. We have phrases like el negro siempre la caga, a la entrada o a la salida, which means black people will always make a mess out of it, either when they are coming in or when they are coming out. And the craziest thing about this, it's not even how bad this phrase is. It's that the people who will be saying these phrases are not white people. Again, Dominicans have separated themselves so much from their black identity that they will use all of these slurs against themselves and still find that that's okay. And it's just so frustrating because sometimes, especially with the older generations, because what I do have to say is that I feel that a lot of the younger generations, we are taking awareness of this and we are working on ourselves to remove these kind of phrases from the things that we say. But when you hear the older generation talking about these things, it's just, girl, you're not white. You're not white. You're like, you would have been picking cotton. You would be like picking off sugarcane. What are you saying? And this is just an example of how deep rooted this is in the Dominican mind. Then the second thing that I think is causing all of these racial conflicts is that we didn't get our official independence from Spain, but from Haiti. And this is something that I feel that a lot of pro-Spain and pro-Europe people have been using for centuries to keep the Dominican people hating the Haitian people. I do think that we are two separate people. And I do think that they have their own language, their own culture, their own religion, and we have ours. So Dominican Republic has the right to exist as a sovereign country, and Haiti has the right to exist as a sovereign country. However, the level of hatred that we see in Dominican Republic against the Haitians, it's crazy. And there is just a constant feeling of fear that is being fed by any politic that wants to get some votes. So, for example, every time that they feel that they want to get extra votes and that they want to make people more scared, suddenly there will be one too many Haitian immigrants. When the campaigns are going on, they will go ahead and do mass deportation. But once the campaign is finished, suddenly we don't hear about that anymore. And once again, the building force of our country, which is mostly Haitian, keeps growing. But suddenly, oh my god, there's a scandal. There's a corruption scandal in Dominican Republic. And what's the next thing we hear? Oh, now there's 49% of Haitian mothers giving birth in Dominican hospitals. These kind of facts bring the fear and bring the hate to the Dominican people and keep them busy fighting an imaginary enemy. Because the truth is that most Haitians feel really proud of their country and they just wish that their country was not in such a bad condition. And the truth is that just as I don't want to be Haitian, they don't want to be Dominican. And what I feel it's worse is that all this fear, it's only causing more division between us. The good thing is though that a lot of Dominicans are actually waking up from this. And we are seeing that these are just fear tactics and manipulation tactics to keep us focused on something else. However, there has been a high rise of nationalism, as there is everywhere. There is in Poland, there is in the States, there's everywhere. So yeah, I do think in general that the world is moving into a better place. But in particular, there's still a lot of things that need to be fixed. Something else that I want to touch on before I finalize this video is how Dominicans react to white people. Because again, most of the times when we think about racism, we are only talking about the relationship between white and black, and in my culture, for example, the relationship between Dominicans and Haitians. But something that is really interesting is how the whiter you get, the better treatment you get. Again, my fiance, when he goes to Dominican Republic, magically he gets more handsome. Magically, there's more money in his pockets. Magically, he is a better, smarter, taller person. He is a really beautiful, smart, tall person. I personally really like him. This is why I'm gonna marry him. However, I can also see how the people in Dominican Republic and in a lot of other Latin American countries have a complex of looking up to the white people. And one of you guys in the comments was mentioning how you felt a little bit dehumanized when you are called gringo, which I completely understand. And, I do know that there's a weird way in which Latin American culture feels that just because someone is white, they get to take advantage of them when it comes to prices and blah, 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 or just calling them gringo without caring about where they are from. But the reality of this is actually you guys also get a lot of privilege just by being white. And that's just it. I was actually talking about this with my fiance, and we were saying how if we decided to go there and make a business there, he would probably get way better opportunities just because he's European, because people would automatically trust him more because he is white. And not only white, he is the real kind of white, he's European. So he will get easier business, he will get easier access to a lot of things. People will be way more friendly to him than if he was just a regular Dominican, which is kind of crazy to think about. So we can clearly see how even though colonialism is finished and we have our own identity, a lot of these ideas are still so deeply rooted in our brains, and how we have been continuing this line generation after generation. Dominican Republic gained its independence in 1844. Why do we still keep doing that? I think Dominican Republic hasn't really had the chance to wake up when it comes to these racial stereotypes, because we keep being bombarded with basically anti-Haitian propaganda and anti-blackness propaganda, and we make a joke out of these kind of things. So I'm really happy that my generation and younger generations are constantly making an effort to make people see that this is so wrong and that we should move to a better position. I do want to finish this video on a positive note though, and again I want to reiterate that I do see the change that it's happening in the good and positive way, and I think that even people who are from a little bit higher socioeconomical status are waking up to the fact that we have these deep-rooted issues in our society. So I do hope that in the future we are going to be looking at a more united Dominican Republic and a more tolerant Dominican Republic when it comes to a lot of things. So yeah, that's all I have for today, and I'm really curious about your comments on this video. Are you surprised by what you heard? Especially if you're Polish, as most of you guys are. Did you think that it was like that in countries where there's a more mixed population? That's a question for you guys. Thank you so much for staying until the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps my channel and it really helps keep me motivated making content. See you on the next one. Bye!